Disease Detectives live session for the boot camp.
Looks like you're still populating people, so why don't we give everybody just a second or two?
All right, I was just going to jump through the disclaimer and then who I am.
Okay, sounds good.
And get into content. All right, as you've seen with most of these, they were provided and prepared with draft rules. So make sure that you do check back in September once the official rules come out, because any changes that we find or any mistakes or any corrections that we put in will be in those official rules. So please make sure that you do understand that, and please don't delete this from this presentation if you use it, just so that people understand that. So there may be things in here that may be different in their final draft form. All right, I'm Dan Nichols. I have been involved with Science Olympiad for about 26 or 7 years, I don't know. I was a student competitor in high school. I coached a team for 25 years. I was a tournament director for a variety of tournaments, over 20. For almost 2 decades, I was on the Indiana Science Olympiad State Board. I served as their executive director, their state director for about 6 years. I'm the current National Inquiry Committee Chair. I've been a national event supervisor. I've served on the National Arbitration Committee, and on Monday, August 1st, I will be joining the national office as the national program director. So that's a little bit about me. And let's get into disease detectives. All right, parts to the presentation. We're going to go through and we're going to look at rules recap. Just kind of go over the rules and the format. We'll go through a training resources plan on what all those resources that you received, how those can be utilized to train your students, and what the design was for that. And then we have a Q&A at the end, asking any questions about disease detectives that you might have. All right, so let's jump into our rules recap. The description is participants use their investigative skills in the scientific study of disease, injury, health, and disability in populations or groups of people. The team is made up of up to two participants, and it will run for one time block, which is approximately 50 minutes long. The event parameters that you have: each team can bring one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. That paper may be in a sheet protector, and it may be sealed by tape. It can also be laminated. It can have information on both sides. It can be in any form, and it can be from any source. No annotations or labels that increase the surface area of the sheet are allowed. So you can't take and put a stack of Post-it notes on the outside of it, increasing the amount of surface area to write information on. Okay. Each team can also bring 2 standalone, non-programmable, non-graphing calculators. So they can bring those as well. All right. So you have those event parameters. For this event, there are 3 different topics that are going to be covered. You have background and surveillance, you have outbreak investigation, and you have patterns, controls, and prevention. So those are the 3 major topic areas and the 3 components to the test. And each of those topic areas should count equally towards the team score. Okay, it should be about the same from each one of those groupings. It should be about a third, and a third. Topics this year will be related to disease, injury, health, and disability in populations or in groups of people. And when you're asking questions about each one of those topics, they should be focused on the content that the students need to know, and also the process skills that the students need to know as well. All right, so that was our event recap. So let's talk about the training materials that you are being provided. You will have the training PowerPoint, which is a content overview. You will have 3 training handouts, and those will go over, if you go back, you've got a training handout on background and surveillance, you've got a training handout on outbreak investigation, and then you have a 3rd one on patterns, controls, and prevention. So you've got 1 handout on each of those. So it's a little bit more specific information on those specific areas. Karen Lancourt, the biology committee chair, she's the one that put all this together. She came up with a series of practice activities that you can provide to your students. There's a sample tournament with an answer key, and there's also the event supervisor's guide on how to prep, what do you need for the event, and how to score the event. All right, so that's all the material that you're being provided for disease detectives. And then here's the game plan for using those materials. So basically, when you get your kids going, the kids are going to need to use the PowerPoint for a general overview to learn the basics of what is this event about, what do they need to know. So use that for background information. This is where they're going to be learning lots of new vocab terms and we'll talk about some ways to assist your students with those as well. So you've got those. Once they've gone through the PowerPoint, once they've got the basics down, they're going to then go through and look at the handouts. And then they're going to start going through to get more information on each one of those sections for the test. So that's what you're looking for there. There's some internet resources that have been provided. I know we don't do CDs anymore, but that was just a hangover. The digital downloads, I guess I need to update that to the digital downloads that you can get. Those are available through the Science Olympiad store. So you can purchase those if you want to, and these resources will be there as well. So once the students have started working on that, this is where they need to start working on gathering materials, gathering resources, gathering information, whether that's virtual or whether that's a paper and a paper binder that they're using materials for. But I know they can't use it in the event, but it's good to have all those resources. And it's good to teach the students how to organize that so that they can have a source of information that they're comfortable with, that they know what information is there and what they're familiar with. So have them prepare the resource binder. As they're learning this material, using the PowerPoint, using the handouts, using the internet resources, gathering this information, they have a whole collection together. And now they can start creating their 1 page of notes for the event. And that's going to allow them to go through and start filtering through all that information. What do we need to have on our note sheet? What do we have to have? What are the different areas to put on that? Because that's I always talk about the page of notes, that resource sheet, that cheat sheet, as you will. It's a living document. It's always changing. So they start prepping that. So as they're doing that, maybe come up with a schedule of when you're going to do the practice activities that were provided for you. And then once you get those practice activities, start planning out, am I going to use those? Am I going to provide them to my students? Am I going to use those to study or use those as a test or practice activity at team practice to see if they're actually going to who's learning and what do they actually know and where they're deficient and what you need to help them with. As you get closer to your tournaments, I would plan on a sample tournament day where the kids are going to come in and they're going to take that, and I would have them come in with their resources, and I would have them come in and I would do it under a timed condition, and I would give them, 50 minutes to do the sample tournament under timed conditions and using just their resources that they're allowed at competitions, so that they can start seeing what it's like to be in a tournament, especially if you are having a first year people on this event for your team. So once you do that, you can go through and look for other practice stations. You can look at old tests and invitational tests so that your kids can get more practice. Disease detectives, I'm sure there are tons of old tests out there on the interwebs, so you can go through and help your students master the content that they need to have for this event. So you've got that. So again, a quick recap: introduce the event to your students with the PowerPoint, have them start learning vocab, learning new terms. Once they have spent a little bit of time doing that, use the handouts to get more information, more content. Have the students start preparing resource collection, whether that's a binder or whether that's a Google folder or whatever. Go through and prepare that resource binder so that they can learn the content that they need and the process skills. Once they have that information, then get your page of notes, get your resource sheet together, start working on that, formatting it, getting it all put together for the students, and then do some of the practice activities, do the sample tournament as you prepare for your competition season. Some of the activities for the CDC that they put out, they are helpful because they're going to help the students. May not be the same type of questioning that they see on the disease detectives test, but it's going to get them familiar with the content. So yeah, those activities that they have, and I know the CDC has their Nerds Academy and that. So I would encourage your students to utilize those as well. All right, so that's kind of the training plan, how it was laid out with everything in mind. Coaching tips. We kind of talked about this one already on the resource sheets. Make sure your students start early. One of the things that I hate to see is students that copy and paste information, but they have no idea what it means. So make sure that your kids have read it and they understand what it says so that they aren't just regurgitating information that they've copied. I would encourage them to add essential charts and diagrams. You may want to have them create a section for the different formulas and useful information. So any of those that they need to have on there may have a special section, put a box around it, something so that the students know where that is. Use a program that allows you to utilize as much of the paper as possible. A lot of the programs with the borders and everything will not allow the students to use all the space on the paper. So choose your program wisely to create it. Both partners need to understand and know the information on the resource sheet. Both of them should have a basic understanding of it, and they should know where the information is on there. And then after every competition, you need to make sure that you debrief and you go over what was on the test, what didn't we use, what haven't we used the last 3 tests, can we take it off of the resource sheet? So go through and see, what have we mastered, what do we know, do we need to have that on there anymore? And then save some of your space for material that's new or unfamiliar that you're coming across. So that's a some of the tips that I learned over the years coaching for the resource sheets. One thing that I've learned with this event is it is very vocab and content dependent. You can use online learning and quizzing platforms to help your students. I've linked 3 of them here. I'm not associated with any of these companies, but Quizlet, Kahoot, and Quizzes are 3 that my students use a lot. There are some disease detectives Quizlets already out there that students have put together, and that your kids can just use those Quizlet card sets and they can help learn the material. Kahoot, if you use Kahoot, you can actually play it on phones, and you can have the kids play Kahoots. We're in the middle of tournament season, and we're in the middle of competitions and that. So one day at practice, we would just have a Kahoot day, and we would all play Kahoots on the different events that either students had developed or that we had found online. So it was kind of a fun icebreaker, a monotony breaking day where we would just go through and play some games and answer questions in that. Same thing with quizzes. There's a ton of Science Olympiad quizzes out there on the events and that. So those are all useful tools that your students can access and that you can access as well. If you're like, oh, I have no idea how to use Quizlet, just go to Quizlet and go to their about and how to, and I'm sure there are tutorials, there are videos that are out there showing you how to do those. So don't be afraid of any of those. They're pretty user friendly. And if you aren't sure how to do it, just have one of your kids show you. The students are, I'm assuming they would have used all of these in their classwork if you're in a school setting over the last 3 years, that they would have been exposed to at least one of those 3, if not all of them. There are 2 online textbooks that you have links to. And that gets us to the end. It looks like we have about 7 minutes or so left. Are there any questions that you have for me? Ramona's question was, am I correct in that the bolded words are new topics? To the best of our ability, yes. We tried to put new topics in, and we tried to bold those. But again, these are draft rules, so I would look at the bold and the official rules to make sure that any mistakes or anything that we had bolded that we didn't change out. So make sure you look at the official rules for that. All right. Other questions, other things that you need help with? All right, well, I hope that helped. I hope it was useful. If you have any questions, just let me know, throw them up in the chat, and I will try to answer those.
Okay, so it looks like there's no more questions. Anybody
Great.
else? We'll give everybody one last minute to throw anything in there, raise their hands. They rather ask something, but we're losing folks, so I'm assuming everybody's, oh, there's one.
What types of injuries and disabilities will we need? I wish I could answer that question, Ramona, but it's going to be dependent on who's writing the event supervisor, who the event supervisor is, who's writing the test, on what they focus on. There isn't a list of specific ones that we've developed that we have to know. So it's pretty open-ended on those. And so they're not expecting your students to know everything about every injury and disability. If they're asking specific questions about it, they're going to provide the background information that those students need to know in the reading, in the background information that they provide, or in the stem of the question. They would have any information that the students would need to know. We do not expect them to become walking encyclopedias. I'm pretty sure that is in the rules. It specifically says that the information should be there, but I will double check to make sure that it is. I thought there was a statement on that in the rules. So thank you for that.
Okay, that looks like that might be it. So I want to thank everybody for attending, and feel free to join us for networking and follow up. Otherwise, we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks so much, Dan. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Sherry. Have a great day, guys.